thought I would start with a song, because a key part of the biblical tradition is the book of Psalms. And Psalms were written by poets and musicians. Many of them are attributed to King David, who was a poet. And as a poet, what King David did is he inspired people who were discouraged about the way things were going in the land. And I'd like you to know that in every generation, poets have a way of noticing what's going on that escapes us who live our ordinary lives, busy with our ordinary concerns, following the patterns of this world. The poets see things from a different angle. And what I'd like to say is that in the Bible we have prophets and poets, and they tended to arise in times when difficulty was coming on the land and its peoples. And what the poets and prophets did was to call the people back to God, to say to them, get centered, get in touch with your own inner being. Now, I grew up as a young man in the 60s, and the connection I'd like to make today is that some of the songs in the 60s were very poetic, of course, but they were also very prophetic. That is to say, God's Spirit seemed to be moving in the 60s, inspiring people to present messages in the hope that people would change the way they lived in the world. And this is a song that I like because it seems to sum up, from the 60s, sum up the prophetic spirit. You may know this song. If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning, I'd hammer in the evening, all over this land. I'd hammer out danger, I'd hammer out warning, I'd hammer out love between the brothers and sisters all over this land. If I had a bell, I'd ring it in the morning, I'd ring it in the evening, all over this land. I'd ring out danger, I'd ring out a warning, I'd ring out love between the brothers and sisters all over this land. If I had a song, I'd sing it in the morning, I'd sing it in the evening, all over this land. It's a new day, I'd celebrate warning, I'd sing about love between the brothers and sisters all over this land. Well, I've got a hammer, and I've got a bell, and I've got a song to sing all over this land. It's the hammer of justice, it's the bell of freedom, it's a song about love between brothers and sisters all over this land. That's a song, thank you. That's a song by Peter, Paul, and Mary. And many of us in the 60s were listening because many of us were discouraged about what was going on. The Vietnam War was going on. The conflict between Russia and America, which involved atomic weapons. It seemed to us as young people that the world was on the edge of being destroyed. And then these songs came to us, these songs of hope. And I thought about this during the week, and I thought about the story of Gideon. And in the 60s, millions of people were longing for peace. Millions of people were singing songs about justice. But as time went on, more and more of those people got adapted to the society around them. Just like in Gideon's story, at first multitudes of people volunteered to help cast out their enemy. But then some of them were preoccupied with what was going on at home. So God said, you guys go home. And over time, people dropped off. But my belief is that right now, just like in the story of Gideon, there's a small group of people who were raised in the 60s, who were made aware of things in the 60s, who are now saying, people, let's make a difference in the world. And now, it's become critical. That was an early way of looking at things. Now things have gotten worse, much worse. And so the prophetic task is still to say, folks, open your eyes, open your ears, listen carefully to what's going on around you, and don't get taken in by the lies that serve those who live in places of privilege and power. Rather, give yourselves to the work of establishing an equality, a commonwealth, a goodness that is given to everyone. Those who have the ability will make money. Those who don't have the ability will receive by the grace of God the things they need: homes, food, education, health care. This is what, as a human species, we need to be focused on now. We need to be focused on working together and resisting those who are trying to divide us so that they can conquer us. Now that's what the texts are about. The prophet Joel is a prophet just like all the prophets. He uses language which is striking, language with bold images, blood and wounds, eclipsing, etc. But that language is intended only to get people to start thinking. And the Apostle Paul knows that when you start thinking, you also start sharing what you're thinking about with others. And Paul talks about, at first, when he tried sharing with people that the Roman Empire was going to collapse, that Jerusalem was going to collapse, and that the people should get ready, the powers resisted him mightily. And that was true in the 60s too. We saw young people being arrested. We saw young people being killed by the state simply because they were saying, we want life to be different. Paul knew that to step out and to challenge the powers that are spoiling the earth will probably result in you being resisted by those powers. Now the psalm for me is so very important, because the psalm lets us know that in praising God, in having a relationship with God, in being in conversation with God, we have a place that we can go which is not influenced by the spirit of the world. That is to say, God provides for us a hiding place, a place of safety, a place of shelter, a place where our spirit can live through the hardest of times. Now, the main thing is located in the gospel text, where Jesus tells a parable. And I'd like you to know that Jesus teaches in parables because the truth of God cannot be communicated literally. You cannot take the Spirit of God and turn it into a graven image. You can't make it concrete, hard, and fast. The Spirit of God is always ambiguous. It's always elusive. It's always saying, follow me. And we're saying, but where are you? Look for me. Yes, but we don't know where to look. Ask about where to look. You see, as human beings, we are spiritual creatures. The image of God dwells within us. We don't have to look out there for God. We don't have to look far away for God. We have to turn inwards and look at at the very center of our being, and that's where the image of God is. That's where we can see the unseen God in our lives. And that's the story about Jesus. Jesus shows us that as a person, he makes manifest God's goodness. And he shows us that that goodness is not in any way associated with achievement in the marketplace. There are so many people in Jesus' days who walked around in robes and in crowns and with jewels. They were fed at fancy tables. They were rich. But all around them, the poor were languishing. The poor were suffering. The poor were dying in the streets. Do you remember the story about the rich man and the beggar by his gate? One of them was rewarded for the life that they lived. We would have expected it to be the rich man, because that's how our world is structured. We praise and worship those who achieve much, and we neglect and despise those who have achieved little. The story of the Bible is not about pride. It's not about possession. It's not about privilege. The story of the Bible is about taking our lives and using our lives to make a difference in the lives of others. To speak an encouraging word, to speak a strengthening word, to come alongside, simply to be present as somebody suffers. We are living in a world where pride is dominating our consciousness. God recommends humility. Yes, do the best that you can, but don't pat yourself on the back. Simply say, I'm only doing what any person would do who's under authority. And we are under the authority of God, and that's important to recognize. So I'd like to sing one more song from the 60s. And this is a song which is a little bit of a prayer. It's a song about a dream. But it's a song about the longing for peace. And in the 60s, we long for peace. And I trust that you are longing for peace just now. Last night I had the strangest dream I have ever dreamed before. I dreamed that good folk everywhere had put an end to war. And in that dream a mighty room filled with women and men, and the papers they were signing said they'd never fight again. And when the papers all were signed and a million copies made, they all joined hands and bowed their heads as grateful prayers were prayed. And the people in the streets below were dancing round and round, while swords and guns and uniforms lay scattered on the ground. You know the words, you can join in the first verse. Last night I had the strangest dream I've ever dreamed before. I dreamed that good folk everywhere had put an end to war. The first place to put an end to war is inside yourself, because you know how often you're conflicted about your own life. And the next thing is to put your life in service of your neighbor.